Hey everybody, I'm the Drink Pro. Today we're trying Parker's Heritage Heavy Char Edition. What's up everyone, Kyle the Drink Pro here with you yet again. Thank you as always for liking this video, commenting, sharing it with your friends, and please consider subscribing to the channel. Click the little bell for notifications. It helps me immensely, and I'm trying to get monetized. I get to 1,000 subs, and I can get there, and you can help me. So thank you guys so much. Today we are trying Parker's Heritage Heavy Char Edition. Now this is the 14th edition in the Parker's Heritage lineup. Parker's Heritage is actually a line of whiskey that's overseen by Craig Beam, Parker's son, and it's to honor his father, much like Parker wanted to honor his own father. Now Parker was actually named after his grandfather. You're starting to see a trend here of honoring your father. Parker was named after his grandfather, Park Beam, who was actually the brother of the famous Jim Beam. So he had a big name to live up to and was sort of destined to be a master distiller. But just because you're destined to be one doesn't mean you're going to be successful. And Parker was actually quite successful as a master distiller. He spent 15 years training under his father, and in 1975 took the reins at Heaven Hill. Two really important whiskey lines that Parker helped develop at Heaven Hill are the well-known premium brand Elijah Craig, and perhaps more importantly, but less well-known, Heaven Hill's first single barrel offering, the Evan Williams single barrel, a very good product to this day that wouldn't have existed without Parker Beam. Now unfortunately, Parker suffered from ALS and it eventually took his life in 2017, but he spent his entire life developing wonderful whiskey techniques and really building a family environment at Heaven Hill, which is part of the reason that his son chose to honor him. Now every year, Craig will pick one type of whiskey, a unique technique, or just a really good batch and release it under the Parker's Heritage name. This is the 14th edition, and this edition was actually sort of purpose-built. We know this because the Independent Stave Company has told us that they still have the email that Craig sent them saying, hey, can you make those extra heavy charred barrels for me? I want to keep them separate from our normal lineup. Now that sort of brings us to the product we're reviewing today, the Parker's Heritage Heavy Char Edition. Now, what makes it heavy char? Well, these barrels that it's aged in for 10 years were level 5 char. It's basically a standard Heaven Hill rye bourbon mash bill, which I'll put below. But they're using a special kind of barrel unlike anything else they typically use. Typically, Heaven Hill ages in a level 3 char, which is about 40 seconds of flame on the inside of the barrel to develop that charred look, which affects the flavor and the profile of the whiskey. You'll hear people talk about alligator char, which is one of the heavier char levels you can buy, maybe the highest you can typically buy. That's actually only 60 seconds under the flame. These barrels were level 5. That's 90 seconds on the flame. That's actually a higher char level than a lot of cooperages will sell barrels because it's kind of unstable. You're getting to a point where you're, degrading the integrity of the barrel itself. But when you're somebody like Heaven Hill, you can throw your weight around. An Independent Stave Company was willing to work with them, develop these extra heavy charred barrels, put the whiskey in them for 10 years, and see what came out. Now this product is set at 60% alcohol and is a non-chill filtered release. It spent 10 years on oak, like I mentioned, but it spent it all in one specific place. There were 102 of these barrels developed, and they were put on the 6th floor of Rickhouse Y. They really wanted them to be in a specific kind of location to get the right profile. And that's the kind of stuff you get from really good master distillers. They understand their warehouses, they understand how the humidity and the temperatures and the just general climate of the different warehouses affects different bourbon. So that floor and that location was specifically selected by Craig to make sure this bourbon aged correctly in these hyper-charred, I will call them, barrels for 10 years. That's a long time too with that kind of char on them. A lot of bourbon is done at 4 or 5 years. They really put a lot of science and analysis into their approach to this. This was a carefully crafted, designed product, which actually leaves me a little skeptical, I'll be honest, because you have to be a big boy like Heaven Hill to be able to make so much product that you can hone in which warehouses will give you exactly which flavors and know when to pull them. Now, they didn't initially say we were going to do 10-year-old barrels. They knew they wanted them in that location, and they knew they wanted them on those heavy char oak, but they didn't know how long. So over time and tasting, they figured out that 10 years was sort of a sweet spot, and here we are. While I'm pouring this, I'm going to say two things. First off, I made a mess. Oops. First off, big shout out to Trevor Kunkel for giving me this sample. Trevor is in the Patreon. If you're not, you should consider joining. And second thing I'll say is the Drink Pro Glencairns are back in stock. They are for sale. Check out on the store, thedrinkpro.com. They'll be for sale there. Reach out and get 1 or 5. I'll tell you right now, just after pouring this, the smell is unbelievable. It smells really good. I'm super excited to taste this because I didn't expect it to smell as good as it does. Oh man, that smells so good. Oh, I get blueberries and black cherries, and maybe a hint of raspberry. The berry note's really prominent for me. Now it's starting to evolve into the honey. Oh yeah, we're getting like Honey Nut Cheerio vibes. You're also obviously going to get the classic vanilla and caramel. But when I first stuck my nose in this thing, what jumped out was that berry note, and it's just wonderful. A beautiful thing to smell on a whiskey. And not something I saw in the notes I've seen from other people either. I assumed this wouldn't have that kind of a nose. So that's kind of exciting to me. I will say the more I keep smelling it, the more the berries kind of take a back seat. It's starting to become a lot more of the caramel and the vanilla. And now the oak is starting to show up. I can smell that light smokiness. Not smoky like peat, but smoky like charcoal, like a campfire almost. Now I already knew from Heaven Hill that this was the rye mash bill, but you can smell a hint of rye grain on the back of this. I'm starting to get like a cinnamon donut kind of vibe actually. It's almost like a cinnamon cake donut or a cinnamon roll with a little bit of that caramel cream sauce on top. I get a little creaminess on the nose. Yeah, although the fruit was really prominent right up front as soon as I poured it out, it's quickly dissipated. Now I'm starting to get more of a, I guess I would call it like a plum, like the dried candied fruit kind of vibes on the nose. I think that is one of the reasons you tend to see a lot of channels sit the whiskey out for 10 minutes and let it settle before they smell it. But I like seeing that evolution. I enjoy seeing what it smells like as soon as I pour it, and then over time how it changes on the nose. That's fun to me. I think everybody should do that. I'm starting to get some almond qualities as well. It really does though stay in that like cinnamon roll, cinnamon cake with a hint of maybe nuts and caramel drizzle on it. And then I kind of imagine it sitting by a fireplace or like a freshly cut tree that we're burning. Like that's the vibes I get. Very decadent and delicate at the same time with big rich flavors. That is a tough balance to keep. Let's see if it tastes as good as it smells. Wow. Oh. Okay. Wow. I need a minute. I was fully prepared to not like this. Heavy char made me assume oaky, which made me assume no likey, but my goodness, it is a beautiful representation of what heavy oak can do. First off, I cannot believe this is 60% alcohol. No way in hell would I believe that. If you compare this to a Stag Junior, which is only 5 to 7% higher in proof, this is 1,000 times more gentle on the palate. It's unbelievably easy drinking, which may not be a positive to some people, but it's a positive to me. I don't really want to fight with my bourbon. You can have big flavors without having that heat and that burn. It's possible. And this is the shining example of it. Right when you first taste it, it's super oaky, sharp, astringent wood, but it doesn't linger at all. It lets you know it's there. It goes, look, this is a big, bold wood flavor. And then it very quickly becomes a soft wood flavor. The astringency leaves, but it still tastes like sweet wood. It's like honey and oak. The cinnamon stick flavor kind of comes out to play. You get this nice Kentucky hug, but it's not, again, it's not too hot. It's just you can tell it's high proof. But I would never guess 60. I would guess 50 if you didn't tell me what the proof on this was. Yeah, and after I get that oakiness, I'm also starting to get some walnut qualities. I think I'm also getting pecan. It's pretty nutty. It stays pretty close to that nutty side of oaky once the astringency disappears. I've never had a bourbon that was this oaky that I liked this much. I expected it to be oaky, very oaky in fact, because of 10 years on heavy char, but it's not astringent. It's sweet and creamy and nutty and really tasty, and it got this wonderful honey note that runs throughout the whole of the palate. And the oakiness hits you up front and then doesn't linger too long. It doesn't overstay its welcome. That's important and really hard to achieve. In the mid-palate end of the finish, after the oakiness and nuttiness have left and you still have this honey undertone, I'm starting to get some black pepper notes, but they're not spicy, it's just little black pepper tingles, and it's pretty quiet. I think there's also a vanilla up front. The more I keep taking sips, the more I see this vanilla and honey pairing together throughout the process. The whole bourbon just opens up and it's wonderful to explore. God, and every sip of this is a new experience. It's really incredible how much this opens up. You could nitpick the hell out of this whiskey, but it's still super accessible and enjoyable. I'm very impressed by this. Parker's Heritage, well done. I wish I had a bottle of this. I usually try to save an ounce. I taste an ounce on camera most of the time, and then I save an ounce for later. I think I have to drink this whole thing right now because this is, wow, one of the best whiskeys I've tried in a long time. Beautiful, beautiful caramel in the nose. After tasting it, going back to the nose, that sweet, beautiful caramel is just, oh, it's just like candy. It's gorgeous. Sweet vanilla caramel cake with deep oak, nuttiness, pepper. God, it's got everything. I am massively impressed by Parker's Heritage Heavy Char. You know, I've never seen this on the shelf, but if I did, I would buy it in a heartbeat. This is a fantastic whiskey, and I don't usually love the heavily oaked whiskeys. And don't get me wrong, this is heavily oaked. If you don't like an oaky flavor, probably not going to be your thing. But boy, if you like oak at all in your whiskey, and you think this is going to be too much oak, I implore you to buy it and try it for yourself, because I bet it isn't. And if it is, reach out to me. Shoot me an email, and I'll buy it off you. Well, that was a fantastic pour, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Please consider buying some merch, thedrinkpro.com. This particular shirt supports local artists. In Iowa, Kyle T. helped design this. He works with my partner, Yolanda. Very cool design, very cool shirt, and we've got them for sale. And while you're feeling generous and supportive, please consider joining my Patreon. I've got a lot of exclusive content up there and opportunities for cool things like free bottles of whiskey and sample tastings with me. In the meantime, you all keep drinking like professionals. Cheers.